Okay, so here I am on another lonely, not Saturday evening. No, I'm not lonely. Okay, so this is the announced live stream where I wanted to talk a little bit about one thing is a remark to MCToon's latest video with the called Moonlight. And I have also prepared another topic from my past. And to whom it may concern, it will be recorded, of course. If you watch this later, all is good. And if nobody watches this, also all is good. Okay, now directly from the Caribbean or the Tuvalu Islands, and this is not artificial background, as you see. I'm sitting right in front of the ocean or something like that. Okay, now, where do I go? That was an idea this morning when I watched MCToon's video about the cold Moonlight, that I asked myself, what happened to our education system in the past 50 years that people don't understand quite simple things. And as I was in the mood to try out a little studio I set up when the corona thing began here for me, and I want to use it now that I probably will not that much teach online in the future, maybe or maybe not. Hey, good evening, Doc Walker. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining. So I thought I bring this to another purpose, this little studio, and talk a little bit about me and things that I found interesting this week. And maybe I turn a little bit less to commenting videos, but make a live streaming in the evening about the things. And one thing that I wondered about is, don't people today not any longer know how what temperature is and how temperature propagates from one location to the other location. And to me, this was about when I was at the age, say, 12, 13, 14, that way, when I always wondered when the weather report announced the temperatures for the next days, which for us pupils in the school were important because there could be a vacation due to the heat. They announced the temperature as something like 35 Grad im Schatten. There was also added in the shadow past of this. And of course, we wondered why is always in the shadow, and wouldn't it be much more interesting to learn what is the temperature in the sun? And it was about that time when our physics teacher thought we can understand this, that I learned a very simple thing, that it makes little sense to talk about the temperature of something in the sun. And to understand this you have to understand the three basic mechanisms how heat propagates and generally what heat is. And another thing that also went in many of my comments is that I said what we understand intuitively are things that have been of use during evaluation, not to get eaten ourselves while we try to find something to eat and a partner to have offspring with and so on. And so some things to us are not natural. But one thing that is a little bit natural is that things may vibrate, and heat is something like vibration. And if anything vibrates more, it has more heat in it. And we can intuitively understand this. So for example, if we rub our skin very fast, it feels warmer and so on, and we have a natural understanding for heat. And also we know there can be a warm wind that can come in front of us and make us feel warm, and we go out in the sun, we feel also warm. But basically, there are three mechanisms that propagate heat. One is if two physical bodies are in contact and one is warmer than the other, then the vibration on the peripheral things, if for example, if that pen would be hotter than my skin, I would feel it because some of the vibration directly gets transferred to the skin. And as I so I learned here currently there's a discussion going on whether there are pulling forces and or only pushing forces. And during our evaluation, it was more natural to move things by pushing than by standing a bit away and feeling pulled from them physically. So there was the last video I saw this evening was by Plannerborg, who explained that pushing forces are also quite natural, but we experience them not in that way. So the first mechanism for transferring heat is that things are in touch. The second mechanism is that there is a transport medium in between. So, for example, if I have a hot pot and I fill some water in it and this water starts to vibrate more because it gets hotter, and I fill this water to somewhere else, or I have a stream of that hot water, it transfers the heat. But to what I would like to come, and now I use my nice studio equipment, which I have bought about 2 years ago when this Corona thing began. And because I'm a hardware guy, I preferred to have a hardware mixer and don't do this all in software. Now I switch to my document camera, and I can also have my picture here top right. And here I have a little drawing board. It is not so ideally sized for the camera on top. I have to try I cannot use it fully. I can try up to here. Let's see if I can the camera adjust a little bit better. I have to restrict myself a little bit. If I draw things, I have to go a little bit more to the middle, and I can also switch on a little bit of light here. No, this is not the one. The light switch is here. Okay. It gets a reflection. I have not tried these things. Maybe the lowest light is the most appropriate if I need any at all. Yeah, this, it's the sun. The sun on the top. It's a LED light here. Okay, I think I go without any light. It should work. Okay, so what our school teacher explained us, how hot is in the sun, it is simply a matter of equilibriums, that something gets hotter if it receives more energy via electromagnetic rays as itself emits. And you can, I have not constructed it myself, but maybe if someone wants to try to do it, you can construct it yourself. I can draw here. If I do only the cross section of it. This is a little bit too weak, this pencil. I have a huge collection of pencils here from the times when we drew many things on overhead projectors. Interestingly, there's no German word for this. Überkopfprojektor is not, we always named them overhead projector. And I try this stream also to throw away all the pencils from years ago, which are not any longer good. I have some here which I know which are good. Let's just try one other one. No, I use the big ones I typically use on the whiteboard, but this must be one that is non-permanent. This is, board marker, whiteboard, and flip chart. Yes, this would work. Okay, so if you build a box with a small hole here, and this, of course, this is not to scale. Yeah, and I have other colors here. This is also a whiteboard marker. If you have ever taught in a school or something, you are always worried that out of accident you use a permanent marker on the whiteboard, and then you have a more difficult process to clean it up again. So let's draw not to okay, not to size, not to scale the sun here, and the sun throws its lights in all directions, and some of which go in here. And now you isolate this very well to the outside so that it can not lose any heat via contacting other things. And also you need to give it a surface which does not emit much light. Interestingly, surfaces that are good in reflecting light are bad in emitting light. So if you put some aluminium foil outside of that, it might work, and some styrofoam here, for example, that it is good isolated. And then you have, of course, to take care that no radiation leaves this box. If this hole is very small here, there is not much chance that some radiation can go out, but because most of that would bounce here somewhere and stay inside and heat up this box. But you can do it a little bit more effective by putting black color here in. And then the equilibriums, if this is perfectly isolated, the equilibriums would be if this inside of the box is about as hot as the sun, because otherwise it would emit the same amount of radiation through this hole here as it receives. And if it receives more radiation than it emits, then yeah, good old overhead fans. If this is in balance here, this must have the same temperature than the surface of the sun, and therefore it makes no sense to speak about the temperature in the sun, because it always depends how much you isolate the thermometer you use to measure this from its environment. And if you isolate it very well, if you put a thermometer here at this spot inside somehow and measure it somehow, you can get a real hot temperature in the sun, and therefore we don't speak of the temperature in the sun, because it really doesn't make any sense. And if we now come to this called Moonlight experiment, of course, if there is no moon, I have to wipe away the things here a little bit. We have the cold night sky as reference, and in principle, if this is a very well isolated box, this point here can get as cold as the night sky, as we have the equilibrium there. And the problem now is that if we look at the moon compared to something, say we first put a wall here or something like this, we basically get the same temperature here than the temperature of the wall. And if we look at the night sky, we get the temperature of the night sky. And typically, this is of course is not very well focused here. This opens very wide, this opening, and the moon is only a little bit here. And so we receive mostly energy from the night sky and a little bit from the moon. But if we put a wall here so that we get the shadow of the moon, of course, it gets warmer. So what we really measure is the temperature of the cold night sky and not some cold moonlight. And this was clear to me about at the age of 12 or 13 or 14 or something like that. And I find it absolutely hilarious that now, 50 years later, in a time where information is at our fingertips, this gets discussed in a way that people really believe it could be true. But that's it. And that was my little rant about the cold moonlight. And the other thing I have prepared, and to a dog walker, if you want, I can send you a link to come in and we can talk a little bit. But I'll do the other little bit prepared topic now. And this has something to do with this book here. Okay, Programming Pearls from John Bentley. And as you can see here, I very often paged in this book here, as you can see from this. I bought it, I think, on my second trip to the USA in 1989, because computer books in Germany at that time were very hard to get your hands to. And maybe it was in a little bit later. And this is basically about programming. And I had another book from John Bentley before, which has this more in its title. This is this one, Writing Efficient Programs. And today, if I look what people program, I often think the skills that are described in this book are mainly lost. It's a little bit like that we can, if we prepare our food, me included, can do the basic work to go from the basic things that like grains or so to the bread we eat. And the same thing happened in the computer world. But I don't want to talk much about programming, and this is also not about a programming language named Perl, because this programming language doesn't have the A in its title. And what I want to talk about is that maybe by this book I got into the habit to do so-called back on the envelope calculations, but by mental arithmetic, and it is on a chapter on page 59, the back of the envelope. Not to dox me, I'm careful not to page in this book to the first page, because there is my name printed to whom the book belongs. And I let me try my document camera. I can zoom in here. Yeah, column 6, the back of the envelope, basic skills, quick calculations, and so on. And if I remember it right, Bentley also did one thing which I do also very often in my trainings. That is, I put together some graphics to explain how things work together, but it may not be here. There's a real nice drawing here about the progress and retraction of Napoleon in the Russian war, but it may be another book from Bentley. I think it was very early. Maybe I show this picture first because it's really nice one, where in one graphic is put a lot of information, but it's not in this book. Maybe I confuse this with books from P.G. Plauger, who also have some books which about programming, but which are not fully in this domain. There's a second book, More Programming Pearls. Maybe that graphic is in this book. I'll check the table of contents for it. It was in a very early chapter. The envelope is back. Could be in this vicinity. Little language, document design. This could be the chapter. It's a long time since I paged through these books frequently. Document design. Document design is about not to use too many different fonts and things like this, because if you overdo this, it has no information any longer. My memory serves right. This picture I have in mind was in a very early chapter of this book. Confessions of a Coder is the subtitle. 30 seconds. Maybe here has an index, Napoleon War also. It should be in the index. Napoleon's Russian camp sign. Here we have it. But yes, I'm getting old. My memory does not serve so well as I thought. It's in a later chapter, but here is this drawing, and it has nothing to do with programming. And Bentley reproduced it. I think I need to zoom out a little bit again. And Bentley reproduced this drawing as an example how much of information you can convey. Okay. Thanks, Don Walker, for answering. How much information you can convey with a cleverly designed graphic. And he explains in the text of this book, he explains much things about this graphic, but basically you have here on the lower diagram, you have the temperatures, and you see when the temperatures were very low. And the broads of this line here is the Napoleon troops going into Russia, the number of soldiers, and the black line here is the number that went back. And you see that much went in and that few came back. And you also have the rivers here, and you see that, for example, here some stayed here and did not fully go to Russia, and they joined the returning troops here. So therefore, the line gets bigger again here when these two retracting troops meet each other. But you can also see that at this river, this line here is a river, that this river obviously did cost many lives, because the soldiers were already too weak to cross this. And here are the numbers, so that you can not only see this from the line. And of course, all this is the geographic of this area in miles and so. And the infographics I do for my technical purpose, for my courses, are not that much involved like this, and they do not carry so much different information. But I very much like to have a large graphic and move the focus to different positions and zoom in and zoom out, and bring a little bit life in my courses that I teach. And I always also, since about 10 years, I make all this stuff, I give all this Creative Commons copyright, because I learned so much from the internet that I think I have to give a little bit back. And if someone takes my course curricula and uses them to teach that stuff itself, as long as my authorship is contained there, and as long as they also give Creative Commons copyright, I use the Creative Commons copyright by name, share alike, or in short, by SAR, that's okay for me. And if someone else can do it better than I can do, he deserves to earn the money. This is my opinion on this, but I can afford to do so, because technically I'm a little bit in the age of retirement, so I still work in the things I do professionally. Okay, back to my nice background, but this is a wall here, but this palm tree is real. We built this room before there came Corona, but since there's a Corona, we use it for our telcos, or I use it mainly for my telcos. As I said, my wife can, in our shared home office, can use her desk for the telcos she does. Okay, that's about it, what I have to say for today. I'm thinking a little bit whether I should not comment so much on the videos any longer. There's one thing connected to this back on the envelope connection I wanted to do. Now it's back. I didn't know that I did know that I wasn't through with it. There is MCToon's channel I really like very much, and I don't want to put the slightest bit of criticism on him, because he does the thing so well, and he's so patient so often, which I probably, the patience of an angel, I probably wouldn't have. Maybe I try it in future. One prominent flat earther wanted to discuss me about a thing, not the child slapping mood button fascist. I would not talk with him. Another one, but it seems he. Hi, Matt. It's nice to see you here. If you want to, can join a little bit later. I'm just talking about the back of the envelope calculations, which was by this book from John Bentley, which he suggested. This book from John Bentley, which he suggested to do. And I was just to praise MCToon for what he does, but there's one thing. Oh, what's happened now? Oops. Oh, back. This was the wrong camera. This is a document camera. This is my computer screen, and as on the computer screen now, yeah. Okay. So one thing I not any longer write a comment about, and I understand why he does it. But when it comes to the 8 inches per mile squared formula, he immediately says this is the wrong formula for the Earth curvature. And he says so right before the person who mentions 8 inches per mile squared can say what he actually wanted to calculate. Usually they want to calculate how far you can see, and then of course the viewer height space is important. But even then, 8 inches per mile squared, or for the metric guys, 8 centimeter per kilometer is also quite close if you take out all the things you don't know because of refraction or so, and you only go for 100 kilometer or 150 kilometer, 8 centimeter per kilometer squared is also quite well. And you cannot say it is not the right formula unless you know what the person who mentions it wants. And even if it is the amount of hidden, it is not quite the wrong formula for a very simple reason. Of course, you have to be a little bit creative, but now back to the, this is the one. Now back to the document camera. Now I have to use the other pencils. So, okay, so we have here a viewer, and here we have some object, and we want to know the amount hidden. And if we imagine the tangent here, and you first, of course, need to calculate this tangent point. And from this tangent point, you can use the 8 centimeter per kilometer squared if you just invert it, so that you get for some height the distance, not the drop for the distance, but for the height you get the distance. So you have just to not to understand how far you can here in this direction, the 8 centimeter per kilometer squared or the 8 inches per mile squared works exactly. It gives you this here, but in this point you know this, and you want to know this distance. So just switch that formula around. You get this point, and from this point here, you know the total distance, of course, and of course, if you go 100 kilometers or so, the angles here are minuscule, and you have the total distance here. And then you go and take the viewer side, take the 8 centimeter per kilometer squared or 8 inches per mile squared in reverse, calculate this distance, subtract, I have to, let me see if I move this a little bit back. Okay, so you have to subtract this d1 from d, then you get this distance. You use again the whatever 8 inches or 8 centimeter formula, and you get this one. And I did this so often when people used instead either Walter Bislin's or that other Miquest's very perfect hidden calculator, but I was very, very much in the ballpark. And one thing with these back of the envelope calculations, which you do with mental arithmetic, of course, you frequently don't calculate exact. But what John Bentley mentioned in his books is that you, let's call it rounding errors. You not make all the rounding errors in the same direction. It may be possible. And if you are engineering a piece of technology that has to work, absolutely, of course, you should calculate at the best precision you can. But if you want just to estimate something, often you get quite close to the real result. And if you have other things in your calculation, like refraction, that you really don't know within 10 to 15%, I always came very close with this formula, and I find this a nice training. And on MCToon's side, MCToon's last video, there also was. I hope you will continue as you're able, as your time allows. Okay. FE Perio, if you want to come in, I can send you a link. There was something at the end of when his interlocutor was still away, at the end of his video, next wrong button again. Okay, I don't know how this question arose. It must be in flat Earth, there must be this question going around. If you would launch a rocket horizontally and let a helium balloon rise here, would this rocket launched absolutely horizontally, would this be earlier or later at the same height as given the Earth were a ball, which would rise earlier? I don't know which height this was, maybe the Kármán line, 100 kilometer. And I did a quick calculation, which later I noticed had the wrong preconditions, that the rocket here will be at this point in 120 seconds. But wait a minute before you contradict. And the helium balloon is certainly not in 2 minutes at 100 kilometer height. And the thing was that this should be shot horizontally. So I assume, so some flat earthers have a problem with this, that they think about a tangent line. And of course, it is absolutely impossible to shoot in a straight line, because this will always be curved. And the wrong assumption I did, which in my calculation that this needs 2 minutes here, is that I assumed that we at least need escape velocity. And even if we have no long ramp here, say this rocket starts at 10-meter height and goes here, it would have 1.5 seconds or a little bit less to fall to the ground here. So it would, if we really want to go straight without first touching the ground, we would say, if it starts 10-meter high, in 1.5 seconds accelerate to escape velocity. Because my wrong assumption was that escape velocity gives you a straight line or close to a straight line. But what I remember if I remember it right from my days in my physics class 50 years ago, I think if we have not escape velocity, we of course have an ellipse here around this. So this is the part of the ellipse closest to Earth, and then comes a very large. Let's make this picture a little bit smaller. If we have not escape velocity, we get something like this here around the Earth. Of course, we would hit the Earth here again, but will not be that exact here. And escape velocity basically gives us a hyperbole curve, which never returns to the Earth. It would return to the Sun if we don't have the escape velocity with the Sun, but it is surely not a straight line here. So basically, this experiment that in flat Earth circles was discussed, shooting a rocket horizontally and let a helium balloon what happened here to my picture in picture thing? I switched it off. Okay, I'm back. It's not. It is an experiment that cannot be done. And I was about to write a comment in which I proposed, and maybe some people feel hurt now because it shows that I have not the best opinion about Elon Musk. That we should suggest that Elon Musk builds a hyperloop from the ground to the height of the Himalaya and puts his Cybertruck or whatever he promised 2 years ago into it and this dancing robot, and do the experiment that way, that they shoot this thing through a 50-kilometer long hyperloop. based on the ground on the one side, and on the other side on the Himalaya, and shoot the things up, and then have the dancing robot wave some people who fly in one of his, how is it called, Spaceship One or something, from say San Francisco to Tokyo or something. And the first one the one who takes the nicest photo shot from this gets a free stay on the Mars colonies, where everything is free for him except what he drinks, and for this he had to pay the cost to transport it to there from Earth. Now, I'm not so sarcastic usually, and I recognize very well that Elon Musk has done a lot of things, but I also, that's my personal opinion, and you may have another opinion, that he tends to promise things so he stays in the mind of the peoples and he gets talked about. But yeah, maybe I'm too much influenced by Thunderfoot, but I don't like everything what Thunderfoot does. And Thunderfoot, you can also feel a little bit of envy probably or so, but I think Thunderfoot is very good in estimating what can be done and what cannot be done, and I share all the doubts Thunderfoot had with respect to the Hyperloop. But maybe time teaches me that I'm wrong with this, and I'm open to this. Okay, so yes, I sent you a link maybe 10 or 6 minutes ago that you said I still have your email. Matt, I have just to go to my email program, and this is here. This is your email. I take an arbitrary one to reply. It's not the latest one, and I put the StreamYard link in it. Just a second. Where is that StreamYard window? And as this is my invite here, as this is my copy to clipboard, okay, this is my second stream experience here. I don't know where all these things are, but now again, this is, yeah, I now hit the send button, and I have to switch back to the StreamYard window, and if you click the link, maybe you come in now if it's not too late. Cheers. Oh, I think I sent the link to the wrong person. It was Matt from I Can Science. That's a story, but it's no problem with it. I have your. I have. Do I have your? Don't I have your? Let me peer you. Don't I have your email any longer? It can't be. Here we go. Here we go. I answered to it, but I think Matt does not. I switched you both. Okay, now here goes the link to FEP review. Both of you have small channels, and one can have very personal communication there, and I like this very much. Okay, so now I hope you can come in for a moment. Am I much behind here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind here. Okay. Back here. Dog walker, what is this slang expression, a fibber? What do you mean with this? As a German, I don't know that there's so many idioms. You should. I should see you here, I hope, as someone who wants to come in. But I don't see. Maybe I know StreamYard too less to see when someone wants to come in. Okay, thank you, Doc Walker. Hey, Sable Eagle, or however it is pronounced. Good evening. And I can send you a link too if you want to come in this night. Otherwise, I'm still waiting for FEP review. Maybe it was too late to send him the link. Yeah, maybe you have missed the main part of this. Doc Walker was here from the beginning, and he knows that I talked about maybe the most part even about the back of the envelope calculation, and because Sable Eagle was not here, I put on this book once more on display, which has this nice graphic here in it. It is a book which is basically about programming, but in a chapter about documentation or teaching or so, John Bentley, this book is a very old book, John Bentley shows how much information in a single graphic can go. Yeah, I know this. Do you? I spent many frustrating hours with GeoGebra last year, and like this graphic here, it shows the Russian campaign from Napoleon and many aspects. And below it shows the temperature. It shows the number of soldiers who went in and came back, the back line, and this line here, where some who stayed back in a camp and then joined the others. And here we have the rivers. That obviously crossing the rivers costed a lot of lives. And here we also have the temperatures. That on the way back, when the temperatures went low here, at this point, it also was a loss of many lives here. The black line of the showing the number of people going back gets much smaller at this point when the temperatures drop so low here. And also this river here caused some substantial loss of life. And I don't know what is the author of this, but this is a book technically about programming, but much like the books of P.G. Blogger, there is many, not many, there's a little bit of information also around this topic. And let's see when it was printed. It's from the Times, print books, 1988. Well, not too old. If you are in my age, 34 years back is not that long back. Okay, let's go back to here. I think they stayed there for a time on the way back. I can page to this. I can look at this page again. What he writes to this it shows. It was here in this last chapter. No, it was the other book, page 59. No. I think they had to stay at the shore of this river because they couldn't cross them or something like this, if I remember it right. And therefore, so many lives were lost. It was also the time in this diagram. I think it should be here. Here we have it again. Let's see if from 50 to 28, the number of people. Let's see if the time is also somewhere here, June to December 1812. It should be in it, but I don't see it. Here's 6 and the way in. No, the temperature diagram is only the way out. This is December 7th, this is October 18th here. And I think at this river, probably they had to it's maybe they crossed it on November 28th. They needed 7 days to make it from here, 14 days from here to here. And this is maybe on the other side of the river. I have to read the text and go to the source of this diagram. Let's see, Napoleon's March. How would you summarize Napoleon's disastrous campaign of 1812? Many programmers would be tempted to produce several inches of line printer output, giving a day-by-day account of personal supplies and location, complete with weekly and monthly subtotals highlighted by asterisk. The French engineer Charles Joseph Minard took a different approach to the problem in 1861. Oh, okay, it's 150 years old, this graphic, 160. He summarized the campaign in a single graphic. Edward Taft expressed the popular opinion that it may well be the best statistical graphic ever drawn. I spent a pleasant afternoon rendering a slightly updated version of Minard's graphic in the pig language. For those who don't know, before we had computer programs in which you could simply delete a line or so, there was a language called PIC, P-I-C, which you could describe drawing graphically. You could say there is a circle and the west point of the circle should be connected to a line to another circle and so, and it was the precursor of being able to draw graphics where you can attach lines to points of certain elements of this graphics, and if you move the element of the graphic around, the lines attached to it move with it, which is the real advantage I see in drawing programs, that you, if you rearrange things later on your drawing, you have not to delete and draw all lines a second or third or 20th time. And maybe the next session in this style, the next live stream, I show the GeoGebra simulations I have made for lens cameras. Yeah, I will not publish them that fast. GeoGebra is very nice, a very nice drawing program for geometry, but it's, maybe I don't know the right tricks. It's not that user-friendly. Okay, Doc Walker, you wrote that if the numbers were all, that'd be fine. If they were, that'd be fine. Getting lots of, okay, that's, okay. Okay, then I think I stop it here. I have to excuse to those who viewed my other stream of me installing home automation. It would have been, I watched it, I watched the recording a little bit later. It would have been much better if I have drawn the general circuit diagram first, what I changed to what. For those who are interested in these topics, I will do it. I don't want to advertise the company who made the items which I built into that house. I still find them very nice, and compared to things that I can buy here in the shops that sell such switches and sockets, and so they are cheap compared to what they can do. But in the last batch I ordered, they sent me switches with the wrong diameter, which do not found in the flush mount boxes in the wall. I assume I can keep these ones that are too large, and they sent me a replacement for free. But let's see. To those who is of to whom this is of interest, I will do further recordings of the installation work, but I will not publish them as a public stream. I will put them all in how is it called, in a watch list, but not make public announcement, because this is a topic of very narrow interest, I think. Okay, so that was it for that evening. FEP review could not take the invitations. I hope I'll see him another time, because I really miss his videos. So have a good night, all of you, and cheers once more. This is champagne with a bit of I think it's liquor from what? Quartzbeere. I would have to look this up. It's really it's also in German. It's a strange word. Kroatz, K-R-O-A-T-Z, Beere for berry, and it's not quite what I think. There is a Kir Royal, I think it is called, but I think this is with another berry. In German, I think Johannisbeere is Kir Royal. Okay, have a good night all. Thanks for joining in, and see you next time. Bye.